Hi, thank you for tuning in today. My name is Gavin. I am the audiophile wannabe, and today we are talking about the Dayton Audio Integrated Hybrid Tube Solid-State Amplifier, the HTA 200, and this is the second episode, Upgrade Part 2. The photo you see upper left is the HTA 200, and you can see in the back left and right tube sockets, it has the EL34 tubes. Those were not the stock tubes, so this was upgrade number 1. Put these in, and there was definitely a noticeable difference. The music became tighter, bass was more refined, and very pleasing overall with the EL34s. In this photo, you can see the same amplifier, but there is a slight difference. You may notice in the front left and right sockets, tube sockets, there are some new tubes. These are the 5654W tubes. The 5654 tubes replace, as you can see in this photo, if you look on the very bottom, you'll see the 6K4 triode tubes, and those were standard in the front left and right B sockets that you see in this photo. And the EL34 tubes replace the tubes that you see in this diagram in socket A. And in the photo upper left is a picture of the type tubes, the 6AK5 tubes that were in the HTA. Don't know if this was the same brand, but this is the type of tube that came with the amplifier. And this is a photo of the replacement tubes. These are the 5654Ws. I believe these are the GE brand. The 5654W tubes are the upgrade number 2. And let me tell you, after installing these and then listening, I was blown away by the difference. The sound quality improved significantly. Before we get to talking about sound performance and improvement, what I wanted to tell you about first was what I noticed when turning on the amp once the new tubes have been installed. Take a look at this picture right here and look at where the volume is. On the far right, you can see the knob with the little LED. That indicates that the volume is about in the 12 o'clock position on the amp. And after turning on the amp with the new tubes in, there was a lot of hiss. At first I thought something was wrong. Maybe the tubes weren't going to work with the amp, but then I thought, certainly that can't be a difference in volume. Sure enough, it turned out to be the volume. There was so much increased gain with these tubes. If you look in this photo, you can see where the LED on the volume knob is now. So with the the volume knob turned down from about the 12 o'clock position to maybe the 9.5, 10 o'clock position, the volume equaled out to where it was previously. So after noticing that there was a significant difference in gain, I wanted to understand just a little more about the tubes. The 5654W is a more rugged, high reliability version of the 6AK5 pentode tube. Designed for military and industrial use, it is often used in RF and IF amplifiers, oscillators, and sometimes audio circuits for its low noise and high gain. The W suffix indicates a premium, more rugged version with tighter tolerances and enhanced durability. So after doing some research online, it was clear that these tubes are indeed an upgrade to the 6AKs. And just a reminder again, the EL34s and these particular tubes, the 5654s, are not stock or recommended per the design intent of the amplifier. So if you choose to go with one of these tubes, it may void the warranty. So just throwing that out there as a disclaimer. The real question, how did they sound? Well, let me tell you, there was an immediate noticeable difference. Suddenly the vocals had energy and presence I could feel. It wasn't that Alison Krauss and Norah Jones were front and center now because of having a soundstage set up in the room, but now there was a depth and presence that was strong. This experience helped me to put into context now what I've heard some people refer to as vocals being either thin or full sounding. The sound now with these tubes is much more full. Something else that really stood out was that instruments and sounds were more clearly identifiable in the locations in space. For example, on Tool's song Chocolate Chip Trip, the bells, or whatever the bell-like sounds are at the beginning of the song, were all across the front of the room, more spread out and more easily distinguishable and more clearly defined. Another thing I noticed on the same song was how the holographic imaging was enhanced with these tubes. On Chocolate Chip Trip, once the tom roll started and got to going, I noticed that when the toms were cascading all the way across to my left, I noticed that I could hear the toms at about the 9 o'clock position. So I'm sitting looking straight ahead, 12 o'clock, directly to my left. I could hear the toms roll all the way over to that side of the room in the 9 o'clock position. And similar to the vocals, the snare had more pop and punch, was more crisp and clean, and the bass drums had new weight and thump to them as though there was a real drum kit just a few feet in front of me. Something else interesting that happened was I was listening to Jazz at the Pawn Shop, and the first song on the album is Limehouse Blues. And there's a guy coughing in the front right of the room, and I'm sure I had heard that before, but it never stood out to me. And when I listened to that song with these new tubes, one of the first things that stood out was, hey, there's this guy coughing down front. He's got a pretty bad cough. And I had never really noticed that before, but this time it stood out to me and was really neat to hear. To wrap things up, I would definitely recommend these 5654W tubes as an upgrade for the HTA 200. The difference was quite impressive. The key characteristics that stood out with the addition of these tubes, first of all, was the vocal and instrument presence. There was a more refined, clearly refined presence, but they stood out in such a way as they had depth and energy and warmth, as though Norah Jones and Alison Krauss were just sitting or standing right there in the room. You could almost feel their voices. Next would be the location of the various instruments and vocals in space. The soundstage was definitely enhanced with the addition of these tubes. And the holographic imaging was very impressive. To hear the soundstage expand in width to where I could hear some sounds more to my left and right side was very nice. Thank you for tuning in today, and if you have enjoyed the content, please click the like and subscribe buttons, as though they will help the channel. And thank you again, and have a great day. We'll see you next time.